I just want to make a call to action for each of you in this room. My heart is so big. I just love everybody. And the thing that gets me the most is to see my sisters in pain. I can't do it. So open that book, tap those resources, get the help you need. Please, please, please. For yourself, for your family, and what they say, for your children's children's children. Because this thing is generational. Very, very important in all of our lives, and as we get to talk tonight, you'll see why it's so important to have this topic and have this conversation tonight. We also want to take a moment and thank Pastor Miller, Deacon Kelly, and the entire Fountain of Life staff that's working here in the sanctuary, yes, making sure that we have everything we need so that we have a smooth event tonight, and also those that are working online to make sure that we are able to transmit this conference and make sure that people are able to get the questions answered that they need. So let me take a moment to just kind of introduce our panel tonight. We're going to have some very, very lively conversation, but I want to just first introduce my panel. So at my far right, next to Bishop, is Mr. Kenneth Smith. Kenneth is a principal of an alternative school. He's a community organizer and the board member of Kid in the Corner, which is a nonprofit organization you're going to hear more about tonight. To my immediate right is Dr. Lynette Hennigan. Dr. Hennigan is the CEO of Concierge Wellness and Consulting. She's also a licensed clinical social worker and a licensed independent substance abuse counselor. So thank you for being here, Dr. Hennigan. And this gentleman, I tease him a lot, call him Dr. Pastor, but this is Dr. Cortez Sims. But I do want to just start by saying it's not a secret that our young people are really, really struggling in the school system. They're having a difficult time with social, emotional, as well as educational interactions. I think COVID had a very significant impact on them, but I think we also have to collect ourselves and move past that COVID moment. We can allow ourselves to stay in there if we like, but there's so much more to an advantage of moving beyond that. So we have to keep in mind that it really does take a village. As we have known that all our lives, all my life, I always heard it takes a village. And so I don't think there's any way to discard that, right? It's going to take a village to help our young people come out of that COVID kind of, you know, it's almost like walking around like a zombie because we're so inundated with information, we're so inundated with lack of access. But I want to talk about this particular situation with our panelist, Mr. Smith.
Hey, what's up?
So let's talk about let's talk about something that's going in the
like,
school
come
system.
on.
Yeah,
She coming to me.
I know you. How you
hey,
ready?
Everybody, how y'all doing? All right,
Yeah.
we're gonna talk about some stuff tonight. I'm gonna keep it real, so be ready.
Yes.
All right.
Absolutely.
And also, thank you for having us here. Appreciate it. It feels exactly the way it's supposed to feel, like
Yes.
family. So
Yes,
thank you.
absolutely. So we're going to talk about bullying and gun violence in the school system. You know, National Center for Education tells us that 17.8% of Arizona students between the ages of 12 and 18 are experiencing bullying in the school system to some degree.
That's a low number.
Well, what is the real number? Because you're in the school.
I'm in the school, so I'm a principal of a school, all right, you guys, and I've worked in schools from elementary K-12 for many, many years, over 20 years. The bullying level is at an all-time high,
Yes.
and they're not reporting it.
Yes.
17.5% is not a real number. I don't know what the FBI, I don't know what they're investigating, but they're investigating our kids the way they should. I'm telling you, they're not looking into it. There's about 60 to 70% of kids at schools that are getting bullied.
Okay.
Now, parents, if that's 60 to 70% of kids that are being bullied, imagine how our students that are of color are being treated. And then imagine them going to an administrator that doesn't look like them and being treated. So when we have these conversations in terms of what's happening, your kids are not going to be able to. Let me give you an example. These students are in a different generation, the generation of with the phones. They live, breathe, and they're on the phones. And we always on their head about being on the phones, right? Get off the phone, get off the phone, get off the phone. That's their life. That's their community, right? The concern is that back in the day, there used to be a grown folks area, used to be a kids area, right? Don't mess with grown folks' business. Kids play with kids. Outside, playing with their cousins, playing in the room. Usually, we were within earshot of what our kids say and do. So if something happened between cousins, what we do? That's your cousin. You can't do that. Wait a minute, let's talk about it. So you already were aware of some of the behavior, some of the language your child was picking up. The phones have shut that down. You have little to no access to what is happening and what are being said to your child. And let me tell you something. We used to go home, our generation and generations above us, go home. You were not around your friends at school. So if somebody had a problem with you at school, it stayed at school. That's not happening. And I want to talk not only about the youth, because I know the youth is in the room. I want y'all to really be honest about this. The conversations that are happening at 9, 10 o'clock at night on the group chat, on the Instagram, on the Snapchat is more detrimental to your child's mental health than anything else that is happening in your home.
Yes.
Because they cannot run away from it.
Yes.
If they take themselves out of the group chat, then it's a problem. They put themselves in the group chat, it's a problem. 15 minutes in the group chat, you could be cool with everybody. The next 15 minutes, somebody's talking about you in the group chat while you sitting in the group chat with them. Or they're memeing you, or they're banging on you. This is what our kids are dealing with. They cannot walk away. So when we talk about the generational shift, a lot of us that are from an older generation and generations that are older than myself and myself have this tendency to think of children as weak, tired. Oh, ain't nothing wrong with them. Just go, you ain't got no anxiety. You ain't got no problems. What you stressed about? Every time you say that to your child, you are closing another door.
Yes.
Because we're doing that because we're thinking about how we were raised. But how we were raised is not how they're dealing with things right now. So we have to be able to have a conversation of, okay, and I know this is not within our wheelhouse, so the language has to be something of the sense of, what are y'all talking about in that group chat? What's going on? How's your friends doing? What are they saying to you? Who you in and who you out with? Let me tell you something. Friend circles and friend groups, we talk about this in Laura's Hope's Crossing curriculum. Friend circles are the most important things to your child. Y'all don't understand. It is whether you're in or whether you're out. And most of it's for survival. They got to survive on this campus. You're not going to save them when you drop them off. So when you have the conversation in terms of what's going on, you need to be monitoring their chats. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, children, sorry, young people. I trust my child, and my child was having mental health issues because the girls in the group chat with the cheer group was getting wild. I was like, you got to get off of that. Tell them to send you a smoke signal or something. You got to get off of that for a little while. It's not good for our young girls. It's not good for the young boys because they're having conversations about stuff that they don't even know what they're talking about, what they should be talking to their fathers or their uncles about, right? And we're not within earshot of any of these conversations to correct it. Grandmama not around, auntie not around, nobody's around to say, hey, whoa, come here, let's talk to you. So what ends up happening is when I'm an administrator and I get the text, because everybody screenshots. I don't know if y'all know this. Everybody got receipts, okay? And they come to my, and the parent comes in and goes, my child wouldn't do that. My child's not like that. My child don't act like that at home. You're absolutely right. They don't act like that at home. They're doing it on the phones.
Real talk.
So when you're having a conversation about receipts and somebody has your child's name on something, your child said it. Okay? And the reason why you were not able to correct it because you were not within earshot to be able to correct it. So if you're not within earshot, how can you help rear your child into a better situation? So to go into mental health, this permeates their everyday life inside, outside. The imagery on the Instagram, the imagery they receive from the social media, and they are absorbing information at an infinitesimal rate. They are getting information all the time.
Yes.
We, Walter Cronkite, right? New York Times, CNN. It wasn't even around saying back then. It was News Channel 3.
5 and
That's how 3, 5, and 10. That's how we got information. We sat down, we heard it for 30 minutes, we walked away, we were stressed a little bit, but we had an okay night. They're getting information immediately, and they don't know how to process it. You got to understand youth mental health is an issue because their frontal lobe is not fully developed. They are not able to synthesize. I respectfully, young people, I love y'all, but I'm telling the truth on y'all today. They're not able to synthesize the information they're receiving, contextualize it. We have experience, we have lived wisdom, we have a lifetime of experience to be able to go, okay, when something's happening in Libya or Syria or when something's happening in Africa, we can synthesize that a little differently. A child is feeling like something's gonna happen to me. Because as far as they're concerned, it's right around the corner. They're not synthesizing it like we do.
So let me ask you a question, because all of that is so very vital, and it is a lot of information. I think for a lot of us adults, it's a lot of information to process, right?
Right.
So talk to us about the short-term and long-term impacts of this particular problem that you're describing, the massive amounts of information, the lack of opportunity to collaborate with anybody, speak to anyone about it, because a lot of the kids are under a lot of pressure about not saying, I don't know, can you help me, right? Yeah. So talk about the short-term and long-term impacts of these challenges you're describing.
Short-term and long-term impact of mental health issues is simple as this. Our community deals with are currently dealing with a lot of issues regarding suicide. Our students and our children are dealing with suicide. Our rates are going up in the African-American community, whether you want to believe it or not. Our white counterparts are outpacing us on that area, but we are moving up because the fact of the matter is your home is a different makeup than what it was before. And I'm going to say this differently than most people think I'm going. We used to have to tell the kids to come in the house. We got to kick the kids out the house now. Okay? We need to let them go out and be kids, collaborate. We need to allow them to be themselves and learn from each other. So when you put kids in sports or any type of activity outside of the home, that is the best thing for them. Because you're back in the day, we used to just leave our house, get up in the morning, 9 o'clock, out. Be back before the street light come on. That's not happening. Kids don't want to leave the home. You have to monitor your students or your child's phone activity. In my house, there is an 8-hour moratorium, no electronics for nobody in the house, including the parents. Yes. I'm sometimes working on my laptop, but because you have to put that into play. It's a different child. So the short-term impact of it is your child is going to be not sleeping well. The first indicator that there's a problem with your child is their sleep. Yeah. If your child is not sleeping well, your child is getting up a lot in the middle of the night. If your child is not able to go to sleep or need melatonin to sleep, they are consuming too much screen time and they're getting too much information. Their brain needs a break. Okay? The long-term effects of that is that what ends up happening when they're exposed to a long ledger of trauma is that we call in the social emotional areas adverse childhood experience. It's an ACE score. Adverse childhood experiences can be from anything that happens in the home: an alcoholic parent, a parent that is incarcerated, parents that divorce, sexual abuse, physical abuse. Any of those things add up and they give you 1 score per incident. And some things are just as innocuous as you were from a single parent home, right, which is what we think is okay, but for the data stream shows that there is an adverse childhood experience when they're not in a 2-parent home. If you take this ACE score and your child is above 7, that means they are already high-level trauma, long-term issues. They are more likely to not have healthy relationships when they get older. They're more likely to be violent. They're more likely to act up in school. They're more likely to not, as adults, grow up to be healthy adults. So the long-term effect is this, what they're consuming in their mental health and their sleep, then also connects to that ACE score as well. It's another level of trauma.
Where can they find the ACE score? Is this something parents can administer to their children themselves?
Yes, you can look up ACE scores online on Google. The information, we have Kid in the Corner. I'm part of a nonprofit youth mental health organization that works, and I'm on the board for that youth mental health organization because the goal was bringing this to our community. The issue is, and I love the board, but they're going to Scottsdale, they're going to Paradise Valley, and that's okay. because every kid needs an opportunity to get youth mental health support. But our area, Roosevelt, all those school districts need this school-based service, and it is kidinthecorner.org, kidinthecorner.org. Go on there, get the information. It also talks about all the youth mental health resources. So, for example, your child has an issue and can't sleep. There is an actual peer-to-peer texting hotline that they can text with other teenagers that Arizona has. There's 988 if they're having suicide issues. There are other mental health resources if they want to call and speak to a teen if they're having issues. Because sometimes they don't want to talk to us, or they don't have the language to talk to us.
That's the important part.
They don't have the language because we don't have the language and they don't have the language. So when they come talk to us, we go back to what our parents told us. And what our parents told us cannot rear our children right now. Not everything. Okay? Paul Mooney said a new broom could sweep the floor, but an old broom know where the cracks are.
And I think it's important, and that's an important message that you're delivering right now. We don't speak their language, they don't speak our language.
Right.
So we actually all have to be students right now.
Yes.
We have to learn a different language so that we can communicate to our young people or with our young people, make sure they understand what we're trying to communicate. We may have to change our language.
Yes.
You know, we want that vernacular has to tone down a little bit to meet the kids where they are. And I know you hear that term a lot.
Yeah.
I want to meet people where they are. Well, this is a perfect example of where you want to make some adjustments in the way you communicate with your children so you can meet them where they are.
You got to meet the kids where they are.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. We spend time scrolling too. We're on our phones. We spend time scrolling too. It could take you 5 minutes to research how to support your child if you go to a resource and get the information. And it's as simple as giving them the resource and letting them use it sometimes. Because you can't be on the kids, because you know how that is, right? But it's as simple as giving them the resource. You need to empower yourself with the new tools for a new age for these young children, because the suicide rates in our areas are going up, and if the person is part of the LGBTQ community, it doubles and triples. And what they hear in the household is also a factor in their mental health. We have to be mindful of the words we say, how we speak, and what we talk about so that we can open up ourselves to those conversations. Because the moment they're hearing you, you're their first teacher. You send them to school, but you're their first teacher. So they're hearing you and seeing you and monitoring you and studying you on what they want to do and become when they grow up. And if they're studying you and they feel unwanted, it's going to lead to them wanting to not be here anymore, because a person that loves them most does not love everything about them. We need to love the whole child.
Absolutely.
Every day, all day.
Mr. Smith, finally, how do we empower our students to recognize the signs personally that their kids are experiencing? And then how can what information, and you gave some information already, can we empower the parents to be more engaged and more active in recognizing these signs and getting support for their students?
So for other students, for youth, if youth is in the room right now, you know, here's the thing. See something, say something, right? But you don't know what you're looking for. So let me tell you, as a youth mental health first aid person, if somebody's giving away their stuff, that's a problem. Somebody's handing off their shirt and their sweater. Now, I'm not talking about y'all broke up and you kept the sweater. Because that boy he's still trying to get that sweater back. But I'm talking about if a person is giving away things, if a person is all of a sudden it was very sad and very jubilant and they're not on some prescription drugs, something's up. Our youth are experiencing things. Here's the deal. The reason why it's called Kid in the Corner is because there are kids who are isolated out of friend groups. The best our kids could do is be good to other kids. Even if it's not a kid that you fully understand or really vibe with like that, just talking with somebody could change their day, their life, befriending them. So that's what a student, but for students, they need to recognize how their friend is acting. And also, I know this is very difficult because it's very important. If you're friends with somebody and they're experiencing a mental health issue, you need to call their parents immediately, young people. We holding on to secrets, and then we're feeling guilty because things happened. We don't want that. So ultimately, the students need to be empowered enough to say, I can go to my parent if something's going down. I can go to their parent if something's going down. I can call 988 for them. I can have them call 988. Whatever. But our students need to do that, and our parents, you guys have resources. Kid in the Corner gives all kind of resources, about 10 or 12 numbers you can have your kids call. It's a little card, you give it to the student. And if you want that to go in your school, you want to have us come to your school, let us know. I will make it happen.
Thank you so much.
Can I add,
Yes, go ahead.
tag on to what he said, a couple of things he said. Parents, we also, it takes a village. So if your child is the one and there's kids over to your home and you see something different about your child's friend, you are a snitch. Call that parent. Don't just let it go. And like I do carpool, my daughter, she's 11, I do carpool. If I see something with another teammate, I'm on the, hey, did you know your child said this? Did you know your child is saying this? Did you know this is what they were talking about in the car? Are you aware that this is happening? We have to be monitors too to make other parents aware, because I know what goes on in my house, I don't know what they talk about in their house. And so, but I know my kid is around those children all the time. So we have to make that aware. We have to, as parents, have to do that as well. And also as children in sports, parents, we put our kids in sports. But we put our kids in sports so they can be healthy, not so we can live out our dreams through them. And so, listen.
Come on.
I know you want to be the quarterback. I know you want to be the star, whatever. Have the three-point shooter and win the championship. No, that your time has passed. You're on the bench, and that's fine. What I see happening now in the sports community, because my daughter does play competitive sports, and you see parents trying to push their kids to live out, quote unquote, their dream, and the pressure our kids have now in sports and academics, as you were saying. When I grew up, I was a D1 athlete. I didn't have Instagram, Facebook. I didn't know my rankings. I didn't look at that. I just showed up at my event, and I competed. Right now, they're looking to see, am I better than her? What am I ranked this week? What is this? What is this? Who's better than me? What am I doing? COVID spawned that because they didn't have another way to promote themselves because they were out of school. But we can't foster that and promote that to where they're digging and conniving against their own teammates, because it creates an environment of bullying even in the sports world. So be aware of that and the language your kids are using and other parents on the sideline are using too, because it can be detrimental and feeding to what he was saying.
Thank
Yes,
you. Can I also add that we have to build a network of parenting as well.
Yeah.
We need to stop being nobody can tell me nothing about how to raise my child mentality right now. We need to be coming together, because I'm going to tell you right now, the other folks are coming
Yes.
together.
Thank you.
The other folks are getting it done. You go in the white communities. I went to Denver, Colorado. I was like, ain't no people of color here at all. And they are carpooling and talking in our group chats.
Yeah.
So we need to be, they are.
Yeah.
I mean, let's talk about it.
And Bishop, you look like you want to say something. Oh, you good? Okay. You kind of straightened up a little bit, like I gotta clear my throat and say something.
And
but I just want to say that, as you can see, this topic of mental health is it's insane. That's a pun,
Yeah,
really.
can
But it's tough.
Yeah.
It's a hard topic.
Can I add one thing? If your child was fine before COVID, they're not fine after COVID.
Yeah.
So let's just have that. Can I just put that in real quick? We all experienced a collective trauma during COVID, the whole entire world.
Yes, that's true.
Some people were able, with tools and therapeutics and other clinical services, to make it through that. Other people who ignored it finally felt their spirit get jolted, and our youth were one of them.
Yes.
So if you have a youth in your home and you're not having a conversation about how they feel and some of their mental health, you're missing the opportunity, because it's as fertile as soil right now to have this conversation.
Yes. Yes.
It's as fertile as soil. You really can have it now better than you probably could have had it in 2019.
Yeah.
Because they didn't know what they were experiencing. But now we've all collectively felt it. So we need to be more comfortable having those conversations of, how are you feeling? How was your sleep? What's going on? How do you feel when you take your test? Are you having moments where you feel, these are things we have to start having just general questions about. And yeah, it's going to get on their nerves. Sorry, teenagers, it's going to get on your nerves,
Yeah.
but it's going to be in your best interest.
Yes, thank you. And again, mental health can be a very, very heavy topic. It can be a little uncomfortable. It can be a little pressure-packed. And sometimes we don't want to do it. But we have to do this for the sake of our children. For the sake of our young people. They are going to be the ones caring for us shortly. And you don't want them throwing stuff at you saying they mad at you because you didn't teach me. My 40-something-year-old daughter tells me, well, Mom, you never taught me that. I said, baby, I didn't know, but I can teach you now. Are you okay with me teaching you now? You know, ask permission. They'll let you in. You just got to ask them. They'll let you in. They're not going to do it naturally, right? But I also can say that, and Kenneth is, Mr. Smith has indicated this a couple of times, mental health does not discriminate. It doesn't discriminate. It doesn't care what age you are, doesn't care what gender you are, doesn't care what color you are, doesn't care how much money you have. Mental health is real. And so we're talking a little bit more about depression and anxiety, and so I want to ask Dr. Hennigan, can you give us kind of just a foundational definition of depression and anxiety, something that can resonate with our audience?
Sure. So depression is a prolonged sadness. If you have just had a baby, they used to call it the baby blues, right?
Yeah.
It is, you don't feel like doing your normal stuff. If you're a vibrant person, you go out, you do a hike every morning, and you get out of bed, you're up at 6 a.m., and you're laying in the bed for a prolonged period of time, or don't get out of bed at all. Now, I want to kind of put it in context. If you have a loved one that passed away, mom passed away, dad passed away, spouse passed away, you should be depressed. You should go through a grief process.
Yes.
Now, 5 years later, should you be in that place? Absolutely not. That would be depression. Anxiety the same way. And he just talked about it, COVID, if someone were to cough right now, we're all gonna, or someone to sneeze right now, we're all gonna have a little bit of jitter. That is anxiety. Because we're like, or if someone's behind you in the grocery store and they sneeze and you're like, and you feel the hair on the back of your neck stand up,
Yeah.
that's anxiety. But we all have it right now, right? We all have a little bit of anxiety socially going out into public. But if it's constant, like you can't go out of your apartment, you can't go out of your door, I can't come to church anymore because I don't want to get the germs, and now you're a germaphobe to the extent where it impacts your daily function, that would be anxiety.
Awesome, thank you. And you know, NAMI, which is the National Alliance of Mental Illness, tells us that over 1 million people in Arizona have a mental health condition, right? 1 in 6 kids, 12 to 17 years old, have a reported mental health condition. Reported. I added that for you, Mr. Smith. So, as a licensed clinician, how is this illness showing up in adults? I mean, you described a couple of different behaviors, but how is depression and anxiety showing up in people's everyday lives beyond, I can't get out of bed? I mean, what are some of those real signs and symptoms that we can potentially see?
So for depression, and I'm gonna give 2 different versions. General depression, you are like prolonged sadness. You can't get out of bed. You gain weight, or have unexplained weight loss. You have, you're not interested in doing anything that you used to do that gave you joy or happiness previously. In Black women, depression shows up as irritability and increased stress. The angry Black woman comes out. So it looks different for us as Black women because we try to be perfectionists, right? Because we're carrying, normally, we're carrying the household. So it looks different for us. Black men, it comes across as the angry Black man, or it comes across as I'm lazy because I don't want to do anything. So we get tagged differently. And because it looks like that in our culture, we get underdiagnosed. So if you were to go see a clinician or you were to go see your primary care physician and said, oh, I'm stressed out, because we would articulate it the same way it's being, I'm irritable, I just don't feel like doing anything, they were like, okay, you're okay. But here's what we also need to understand, because I also believe in integrated healthcare, the whole person. And what we suffer with a lot in our culture is high blood pressure, diabetes, and guess what? Diabetes, high blood pressure, and depression are in a marriage together. So if you have one of those chronic illnesses, you probably do have depression of some kind because they are married. And so you want to be careful. And what could be the antagonist of the depression is the medication that they're prescribing. And so, I mean, know this for another day, but I want to make sure you have that information to ask questions later.
And I think it's important to know that you should be your best advocate. If you've been prescribed medication, and it's not working for you, or you feel it's not working for you, you're the best one to say that. You know, don't let the doctor tell you, no, you absolutely need to take that one. No, I want you, tell him Laura Bulluck said, my medication ain't working for me. Tell him she said, I can say this to you, because you should be that advocate for yourself. It's not gonna work. The treatment isn't gonna work if you are not feeling the anticipated effects of what that doctor is prescribing that medication for you, what he's trying to accomplish. And you should be in agreement. You should understand what this medication is trying to accomplish for you, right?
Absolutely.
So why is there
What about people that don't want to take medication at all, ever, no matter what?
Well, we can't help them right now.
Oh, okay.
Okay, because we got 21 more minutes and we got to be careful.
They got
That's-
a problem
that-
and they don't want to take no medication.
Look,
They
That's
want to take
part
Tylenol.
two. That's part two.
Oh, sorry.
we got something for them
Like,
later.
ain't that some anxiety or something?
Yeah,
Like, ain't that
yeah,
ain't
we
it a
got-
condition? It ain't a condition? Okay, sorry.
Yeah, yeah. So I want to talk about why there's such a negative stigma around both depression and anxiety, or just mental health in general.
You know, I think we're in a very, we're at a crossroads right now, actually. So I think there's stigma in our community, but I think nationally in society right now, the stigma is being chiseled away at. You have more and more people coming out saying, oh yeah, I have depression. Now, whether they're serious or whether it's a fad or it's the in thing to say, it's bringing the mental health conversation to the national table.
Yes.
And making legislation and money go to those places. So when you look at your Kanye West, God bless him, because I mean, he's mentally ill. You look at your Britney Spears, she's
Very much so.
mentally ill. But those are the worst case scenarios that are in the forefront of our society right now. But it does lend to conversation of how did we get here? What led to this? What's the pathology behind it? So I think stigmatize is, from a national standpoint, is chiseling away, which is good. We want to have that conversation. I think in our community, we have to get over the fact that you said earlier, you know, what stays in my house, we don't talk about anything outside of this house, because you know what, secrets keep you sick. And if you look at generationally what has happened in our community, it perpetually happens. Poverty perpetually happens. You know, it stays, you have Uncle John that's in the back room at the family reunion. Some of you guys are gonna go to your family reunion next month, in July, and guess what, the crazy uncle gonna be sitting over at the side, someone's gonna take him a plate, or her a plate, Auntie Jen, and no one's gonna talk about why are they like that. What's going on? But that is impactful because some mental illnesses are genetic, like schizophrenia, especially in our community. Schizophrenia presents itself in the African American community around 20 to 25 is when we have the psychotic break, when they start acting weird and strange, and we don't know. But those things need to happen because some of those mental illnesses, the more serious ones like schizophrenia and bipolar, they're genetic. It's in our code. It's in your genetic code, just like heart disease, diabetes, high blood pressure. We need to have those conversations as families so we can deal with it and address it appropriately.
And I would say, and maybe you would agree with me, that individuals that are having this hesitation about getting treatment, because that stigma is real, and what would you offer to them, to anyone that may be feeling like, you know, I don't know how I'm going to break through this fear of addressing this? What would you offer to them?
I would offer them, if you went to the doctor and they told you you had stage 3 cancer, which is an illness, your first thought would be, how can I treat it? Who do I need to see? If someone told you you have depression, you should think of it in the same context, because it is an illness that can be treated and managed.
Yeah, that's good. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Laura,
Thank you, Dr. Hennigan.
I want to
Yes.
say something.
Yes.
So we're talking about anxiety and mental health, depression. A lot of us may not be dealing per se with depression and anxiety in the definition that you've given, but many of us are dealing with PTSD.
Oh, absolutely.
Post-traumatic stress disorder related to COVID, related to George Floyd and all of the racist issues that are taking place in this country. I'm one of them. I just had a conversation with somebody because I experienced something with one of my clients, and I just couldn't believe that this happened to her. And in all of the instances where this specific activity would take place with a white person, they would not have been criminally charged. No way. And so I'm at a place now to where I told somebody the other day, I need help, because I'm at a place right now to where I'm about to explode in certain circumstances and situations. And so I need to, because I'm before judges and I'm out there, and so I have to maintain some civility. And so help me.
Help Bishop, please.
Bishop, you are absolutely correct, and I think all of us in this room that have that PTSD, people of color, and that's why it's important, number one, to find a therapist that looks like you, so you can go into that room and say what you just said and use some maybe words that might not be dignified to use in the courtroom or on the stage. Because that's how we feel. We're angry, right? We're angry because we are being perpetually oppressed. Even myself, like, we're going to Florida, and I don't want to go to Florida because there's a travel advisory not to go to Florida. And how do I tell my counterparts? So there is the place where you have to have that support system. Here, out here, if you're not seeing a therapist, so you can let off that steam, so to speak, in a healthy way, until you can get into a therapeutic place. Because unfortunately, what's going on in society, we have no control over that. We only can control our response. And our response, if we go out here, like some other people in society are going out here to reconcile the wrongs in a violent way, we know what the outcome is going to be for them. It's not healthy. And because we're in this environment, listen, we have to, your faith right now is optimal. If you listen, I tell people all the time, Jesus saves you from me on a daily basis. And I mean that. Because sometimes I see stuff, and I'm like, and I question myself, like, is this going to be a misdemeanor, or is this going to be a felony? I mean, it's real talk, right? I'm just being transparent. You have the questions in the workplace. I'm like, if I slap her, am I going to get fired, written up? It's going to be a felony. Am I going to have to call Bishop so he can represent me? Or do I?
I don't do criminal.
Or do I just need to go? I probably just need to pray. Holy Spirit, activate, because we're in that place where you need that instantaneous. I need that. And so if you don't know Jesus right now, I would invite you to know him.
Yes.
Seriously, I mean, I say it facetiously, but I really mean it. And a sidebar, I'm also an ordained minister, so I mean that for real.
For sure.
Can I just add, very quickly, in terms of the George Floyd situation, in terms of the racism as the real pandemic we've been dealing with forever, right, as African-American people, give it up for the youth for going out there, marching, being in the streets, because we give them so much flack. We give them so much stuff about what they don't do, but we raise these social justice warriors. We raised them, and then they went out there and they did their thing. Whether it was at the school board, whether it was at the school, whether it was in the streets, whether it was at the Capitol, they did it, and they're doing it. And the energy is always brought by the youth. So give it up for the youth in this room, because if you showed up for any situation that you felt empowered by, give it up for y'all, because youth are pushing the narrative. So it
Yes.
sometimes for me, quickly, when I feel like how you feel, and I do, and I don't have the years you have, but when I do feel like that, I do look at the youth as an opportunity because I work with them and I can see daily that their generation ain't dealing with it. They're dealing with it totally different, and they're ready to go down and knock some stuff down and get ready to get down. And that just it empowers me as a person that's a little bit older. It empowers me to say, hey, look, I appreciate y'all, because when I feel like I can't do it, I know y'all gonna handle business.
Thank you for that. And so I want to turn to Dr. Sims. Thank you, Dr. Hennigan. I appreciate all that insight. And I want to turn to Dr. Sims, and I want to talk a little bit about, as a board-certified mental health professional, there is a lot of hesitation for people to get treatment. What is the impact that you're seeing in your role as a pastoral counselor as well, of how this is impacting families and communities? And so when I personally don't get treatment, what's happening to my family and what's happening in the community that I'm operating in?
Well, I would say,
It's on.
okay, I would say that what's very impacting is the ignorance,
Yes.
because ignorance couples with neglect. And then it makes people say, I don't want to deal with that, and that doesn't go for me. And it goes to different branches or different areas. And then if somebody is already saying, well, that don't have anything to do with me, that's very impactful for the family, because family makes the community. If you look at the word community, the middle word is unity, and then we commune with each other, and it's community, right? And so if you have a one single household, mom and son, and we don't know what that background of the parent, and then the child is impacted at the school, and we go to this church. Now you got, out of 7 days, if you're not aware of anything, you don't engage with the child, and now it's time to go to church. So, now you have this beeline routine of what you do, and nothing is going on because you have just ignored everything that's been available to you. Scripture says that we are destroyed by the lack of knowledge. And we like to quote it because it sounds good that we remembered it, but we don't make it applicable at all, enough to be impactful to say that, hey, I'm part of the community too. And then for us in this type of region to be people of color that lives as a minority, and the majority doesn't look like us, and then we don't like to talk to each other, the neighbors, the friends, and people like that, is very impactful, because we still leave people in lack because we don't want to find out what the truth is. So I would say ignorance and truth. Because truth, in one translation of scriptures, it says that it sets us free, which means, the way I've studied it, sets us free, it gives us a stage. But to make you free means that I need to put in the work. And we have a big lazy generation. Now, a lot of people say, I'm not lazy. Well, if you are putting a lot of sugars and stuff like that, not doing the healthy things, because you might find out that you are in a place of depression, that you might not feel like doing nothing, because we might operate more from an emotional standpoint. If I'm not stimulated because I don't have stimulation in my family, that's generational, then I'm really not going to have any type of momentum. And then if I go to church and they tell you, well, jump up and down and praise the Lord, they're going to say, for what? We broke. Amen?
Amen. Amen. And so let's talk about the ripple effect.
Okay.
Right? Because we know, as you just described, you just laid it out, that it's generational. It could affect, me, my siblings to come, my community, my family. Let's talk a little bit deeper about the ripple effect, because at a surface level, we can see it.
Yes.
We can see that the ignorance will not empower my family. But let's go deeper and say this ripple effect is really destroying families.
It really is.
Would you agree with that?
Yes.
So talk a little bit more about that.
So the ripple effect, well, first of all, if we can go back to just basic stuff means we really think that we know each other, and we really don't. So as a person, I always ask, and I do this survey because it was given to me years ago, and I was a hothead, trust me. And when I never forget, my bishop in Chicago said, okay, write down 5 people that know you the best. And I'm just naming people. And what I got down to, ladies and gentlemen, is he said, no, there's 3 people that knows you the best. That's God, the devil, and you. Why? God is your creator. The devil studied you since you was born, because he know how to tempt you so you can always not be successful. And then you know yourself better than anybody. So even when us parents get all hot-headed, I know my child. Well, why they keep disappointing you? I taught you better than that and all this other stuff. Now you have that ripple effect. And when you've seen that behavior, by the time it's your child, or your time to have a child or do something else, I'm going to repeat what I've learned. Inside the word learned, L-E-A-R-N, is 3 words. It's learned, it's earned, and it's the ear, what I've heard. So if I've heard this and what I'm earning and what I've learned, I'm going to repeat because this is what my mom and my daddy told me. So by the time I get to the school, which is what you're saying, this is my first teachers. And I blame you because you taught us to act like this because that's my character. So it's going to ripple. It's going to repeat itself until there's a breaking in the generational curse there. And after you get through applying the blood, I'm all with it. And after you're doing everything that we're taught in the spiritual part, now we need to bring the practicums. Show me how to maintain the healing. So I won't repeat what my mom and my parents told me. Because if I repeat that, I can't tell my counterparts that one of them probably is one of my reasons why I'm acting like this, because they secretly molested me. Or put me at places, because they don't have time for me. And in this generation, what's teaching me is the phones and the devices. That's a different, so that's a different person we're dealing with. So that's the ripple effect that it continues. And because we're being ignorant, which means we are ignoring, then shame comes, because I don't want nobody to know that that's my child.
Whew, that was deep. Y'all didn't know y'all was going to school, huh?
I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
well, how
we
many more letters we going to get out of here?
So let's talk about the economic impact.
Financially?
Yes,
So,
economy,
okay.
right?
So also, scripture, we saying something about, based upon the things that we don't know. If you notice, a lot of the stuff that, if you look at the whole market from a business perspective, I'm also an entrepreneur too, and you look at the economics of financial, of lack, what we don't have enough of, and you look at what are the main stores that's come around us, it's usually the stuff that's not good for us. A lot of sugars, carbs, and things like that. Cheap restaurants, cheap things, because it's just enough to feed me. But that has a lot to do with what we've learned, because we're so used to getting deals in EBT all the time. And that was only meant to be temporarily, not forever. But if my parents keep me on food stamps, now I come from the generation where we had the big old dollar and it was food coupons, and we was happy to get the green one versus the brown one. Those of y'all that's old enough that knows that, And so, and it was rolled up, we was glad to do it. Or some of us that was brought up in broken homes and backgrounds like I've had, that was given a note to the corner person because they had deals, but I didn't realize over the years, because it was a secret, which affected us economically. We don't know what kind of deals that they had with Mr. Nick at the corner store, because they had underskirts, if you can catch that, going on, because we owe him. And I came back with a whole bunch of groceries in my hand. So a lot of this stuff has a lot to do with the economy, because we are broke, we don't have enough. But if God wants, if everyone in here and everybody that's listening, we are empowered to be better than what we've been and come out of that background and that poverty mentality, it can affect us much, much better economically. We can go to those sports. We can have social skills so we can know how to talk to people and learn more than one language. And play sports that keep the creative part of our brains going. That's a lot of social, emotional, and mental health going on. But once you deprive them and you take it away from them because you didn't want to keep your job and you wasn't mindful, by natural status, we're selfish as people. We have to be taught how to give.
That's deep.
I'm trying to be mindful of the time.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you. And so Mr. Smith shared some great information about gun violence earlier. And I just want to close by asking both Dr. Hennigan and Dr. Sims, from a mental health perspective, what are you experiencing in the realm of gun violence? Or any effects that you're seeing in the people you serve?
Okay, I can address as fast as I can. The short answer is, it has become the normal go-to resolve. Nobody wants to talk. Nobody wants to confront. That's the go-to, just to go ahead and knock it all out, because, don't let me get my gun. And that has become the common talk in almost everyone in the house. Whereas it's still a selfish stigma, because you only thinking about you. You're not thinking about us and we. You think about them and those. That has nothing to do with me. And that's a bad situation when it comes to having that gun to be the resolve or the revolver resolver. I should say it like that. And so we could take somebody's life out, and then it's not till we hear what happened to the person, what was going on with them mentally, emotionally. And then now we have to do this psych evaluation and do these assessments and stuff like that to see, well, how do we charge them in court? Is there something mentally going on with them? And then that's how people felt like, well, now I got this pass to get this person off the look, because maybe it was mental health. But if you was paying more attention and not be, so stuck on yourself. And I'm saying as parents, because I'm a grown parent too. And I remember how my own daughter was telling me, Daddy, do you expect for me to do the same thing you did now that you have a lot of college degree? Do you expect? And I was like, no, I don't, because I don't want the pressure. Right. Because to have anxiety in it, because she suffered from a level of anxiety. And from the spiritual world, anxiety means the absence of peace, of God's peace. Yeah. Anywhere there's the absence of God's peace, anxiety is there. And that's how you know you be like, because it simply means something is not settled in your spirit. Because you're not at peace with your decision, so you're anxious. You can't figure out how come, and until you come to terms and say, okay, let me exercise what I've been told, but you only get that if you go past your perimeter and get some help.
Do you have anything to add to that?
I do. I agree with what he said. I think as far as gun violence and mental health, I think that is the cop-out. Yeah. Not every person that is mentally ill is toting a gun and mass shooting. Now, they say our media promotes that so they can, in court, have a caveat. Bad behavior is bad behavior, period. Mentally ill, sane, insane, green, blue, purple, or otherwise. If you have enough wherewithal to plot, look at schematics of a building, buy arsenal, know how much, know what time they're entering the building, know what time, all this stuff, that's not a person that is mentally ill. That's a genius. Let's be clear. And there are some geniuses that are mentally ill. Yes. But when it comes down to the crux of it, of course I'm going to say I'm mentally ill and play crazy, because I don't want life in prison. I don't want the consequence. So I find it more that the mental illness portion in the gun violence is, I'm going to do this, say I'm mentally ill because it's the thing to do right now, so I don't have to deal with the consequence of what I did. When really is, you just were mad you couldn't have your way and went up and shot up a building. That's what the issue is. Yeah. And so I think we need to get down to the pathology of it, and not criminalize mental illness or characterize people that have a mental illness as mass shooters, because that's just not true. It's just not true.
And go ahead.
I was going to say that as far as the school is concerned, because we're talking about, my portion of this is talking about the youth, it is top of mind for every single administrator, every single teacher, every single child in a school is a shooting. So I'm going to say it again. It is top of mind. Your child is concerned about being shot in schools. The teachers are concerned about getting shot in school. And as administrator, my last day at work will be if ever that ever happens. I will never go back in education if I lose a teacher or a child. That is my worst fear. It's what keeps me up sometimes at night, worrying about, is the door perfectly latched? Are all of our, I have one way in and one way out of my school, and I still worry.
Yeah. Okay.
About what sometimes they're bringing in too. So it's top of mind. So if you're not having that conversation, every time a mass shooting happens, your child's triggered.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if you're not having that conversation like, hey, how do you feel? I know what's in the back of your mind, but you got to have it front of mind so you can flesh it out.
Awesome. So this has been a lively conversation, so thank you all for such wisdom. My goodness. And we do have an opportunity for some Q&A, and so Pastor Miller.
First of all, it's been a great town hall so far, and we want to take and get your questions and your answer and give you some answer solution. We're asking, I'll have the mic and I'll be going around to do some live questions. We're asking that your question is limited to 30 seconds, maybe 35, but we in turn want to get to as many people as we can. Some of you received 3x5 cards. If you did complete those, would you hold those up? And we in turn, ushers, would, thank you. But we're going to begin the questioning as Deacon Kelly sorts through those. If you have a question, please raise your hand, and I'll come to you as right now. Can I get you to stand up?
Praise God. First of all, I want to say, Pastor, I pray for your release. You're not just carrying the weight of what you do in the world, you're carrying the weight of the church. And I pray God lifts that burden off your shoulders so you can continue on in the name of Jesus. I love the fact that we're here as people of color, given a solution for something that we have been burdened with prior to or coming out of slavery. Martin Luther King said in 1967 that if we didn't deal with the trauma, right, that came from slavery and everything we went through, we find ourselves regressing, and that's what we see. Not just with that, can we talk about the fact that we're moving towards the end days? We're not fighting against flesh and blood. We're fighting against principalities, and that has been also released. I see faith, and now I see the ability to have works to help us through. How do we take this outside of this building? How do we come together and have social advertisements, right? Come together and have small skits to get to these youth and the other people that are so focused on social media.
So let me say first that because you stood and put your lips to that mic, you are the messenger. You don't have to wait for anybody up here. If you want skits outside of this church, create skits outside of this church. That's the problem. We can't wait for somebody to come and fix it for us, to solve our problem for us. We are empowered to do it. God created a gift inside of each one of us, and sister, I see yours. It's to create them skits. So when you go home, start writing. You can call me, we will find the people. That's not a problem. So while we're searching for assistance, know that you're empowered to be the leader of that. And there are resources out there, there are things going on in the community all the time, and I know Kenneth can administer to that there's a lot of resources out there and a lot of things like you're describing out there. We just got to search. You know, I hear all the time that, I heard a message in a movie, I think the guy said, the information is out there, we just have to let it in. Right, we can't block it. We can't say, oh no, that's not for me. Oh no, that's not the right one. It's out there, just let it in.
Can,
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 The release of like the spiritual heaviness, like where is that addressed?
Can-
Because we cannot do the works without faith being focused
Absolutely.
on addressing the fact that as we move to the end times, these are perilous times.
Bishop, can you address that?
We are, so this is a mental health, and so now we are moving into another realm.
Okay.
And I'm cool in moving into another realm because we are in the last days, and the things that we are experiencing is prophetic.
Yeah.
And so for me, I'm not alarmed by what is taking place because
Right.
the Bible specifically tells us that in the last days, this is going to happen. This is going to happen, that men are going to be lovers of themselves more than lovers of God. They're going to be haughty. They're going to be prideful and on and on and on. And so we just have to know that this is what we are experiencing because it has been spoken, it has been prophetically put out in the atmosphere, and we're just living it.
Yes.
Okay, now we are living it, and one of the scriptures, when you were talking about anxiety, and I think Dr. Sims hit on it too, from Philippians 4 and 6, for me, and one of the scriptures that help keep me alive is Philippians 4, 6, and 7, dealing with anxiety. The Bible says, don't be anxious for nothing,
For nothing.
but in everything with prayer and supplication, Here we go, saints. Let our requests be made known to God, and that he will give us peace that surpasseth all understanding. And so we have to find ourselves and get ourselves in a place to where, even though we are dealing with depression is all around us, anxiety is all around us, I'm just here to tell you, and I'm telling you as a man of God from a spiritual perspective, you do not have to be anxious.
I love that.
You don't have to be depressed, because God has told us that if we go to him, he'll give us what? Peace that surpasseth all understanding, that we keep our hearts and our mind focused on him. But again, I've completely digressed, but I want to digress. I'm glad that we've gone this way.
Absolutely.
Because we need to know what the Word of God says and what is there for us, and I live it.
Yes, yes.
I just want to say that in terms of mental health and in terms of what you're referring to, he addressed the spiritual aspect of it, but if you want to know action, unity. We need to be united as people. That's the first thing.
Yeah.
So that's first. But secondly, going out and having more, this place should be packed to the brim. It should be people standing outside to hear the message of mental health as much as they're here to hear the message of God.
Yeah.
And that is where I'm at in terms of what can we do? We are the people we've been waiting for.
Yeah.
So what Laura said, we are the people. The time is now. So what you need to do is get some other people together and start having these conversations in a way that's beneficial. Because bringing more people to those resources that are up there, and bringing more people and getting them to Kid in the Corner and bringing more resources to our community is going to help us be better. All together, all the way. But it's going to require us to not focus on just a certain type of person. A certain type. You got to reach out to everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't, we got to get off of some other stuff. We got to reach out to everybody. If you want to be missionarying and you want to go out and actually missionarying, being the person that walks in the Word of God, then you got to go out and talk to everybody.
Yes.
And it has to be about how else can you be loved and whole. So my thing is, unite, get people together, and really talk about mental health in a way that is going to really push the narrative in our community. Really get out in these neighborhoods, because these folks need it. They don't know they need it, and then when they do tell them, they're going to be ready to do it.
And it doesn't have to be a big forum. It doesn't have to be a big forum. It can start small, right? So I have a question here that says, what is the best, most expedient way to find a competent therapist? Therapist?
Well, there are multiple ways now to find a competent therapist. Some of those are in the resource guide that you will see. You can look online at Psychology Today. There's a blacktherapist.com. You can, you can Google different places to find a black therapist, if that's what you prefer, if you want someone that looks like you. But you can find a therapist. If you have insurance, go on the back of your card, call your company and see what's in network. Listen, they're taking a chunk of your money, of your paycheck every week. I have to tell people this. They're taking a chunk of your premium to pay for the premium every week. Use your services for mental health. They are covered by your insurance. Use it. You're paying
And I will
for
just
it.
add to that don't be afraid to shop for a therapist.
No, don't be afraid.
Have an appointment and have the appointment. If it doesn't work out, thank you. Next. Till you find the right one. We can sit up here and give you a whole list of how you can do it, but you're going to have to be the one to talk and sit in that room and let those emotions come up and see how comfortable you are. But it's all based on your comfort with that individual. And so try those options and see what works. But don't let the fact that you got to search for it and experience that therapist, don't let that be the reason why you don't do it.
But I think we have to get to the point to where we're not ashamed
Right.
to seek out a therapist. That's
That's
one of
where
the
it's at.
biggest issues. And so I'm hoping that those of you who are in the room, or if you are watching via streaming, it is nothing wrong with sitting down and talking to
Right.
a professional. And again, I've talked about the spiritual aspect of it, but from a professional perspective, there's nothing wrong with it.
Not at all.
Nothing wrong.
You go to the doctor for high blood pressure, and so mental illness, many times it is organic.
It is.
Just as other organs of our body. So we have to be able to deal with that.
So
Most therapists too, if you find one, they'll give you a 15-minute consultation to see if you guys vibe, and that's free. And if you don't vibe with that person, don't see that therapist. And there are therapists too on the reverse side. There are people that I consult with. I'm like, you know what? You'll be a better fit for somebody else. There are certain issues I don't deal with. I don't deal with pedophiles, and I'm very upfront with that. I don't deal with pedophiles. Let me refer you over here. And so therapists should be very transparent with you in that consultation.
And I was just going to say that they will allow you to have that 15-minute. There's an expectation that there's going to be this free consultation to kind of try it out, because they want to make sure that they can actually be of service to you, right? So don't be afraid to get that 15. You can have 4 or 5 15-minute consultations lined up. Take them all. Take them all. Shop it. You know how. You're right.
Just try them on.
So
That's a free hour right there.
that's a free hour for 15 minutes. You got a whole therapy session right there. You know, pick up with her where you left off with him. Come on. Let's get it done.
Well, quickly to add to that, I was going to say, also for some of you all who do have insurance, call your insurance provider. I mean, your job. I'm saying, and ask them, with your benefits, do you have free counseling that comes with your benefits? A lot of people have been praying to God, oh, I want benefits, and you don't even use them. And it's already free to you, so many different sessions that's free to you. The other thing I was going to say is the worst you could do is to have all this free stuff and still don't do nothing.
Yeah. Okay, the next question says, what services are available what services are available for free? I'm just going to cross out a few words, for free. And then how do I get a person to counseling when they are not your child or a family member? You don't. They have to make the choice. Therapists, would you agree with that? You can love them. You can share information with them. You can even share maybe some behaviors that you see that might be concerning, and because they may not see it, but you do all of that in a loving way. And what you're really trying to do is empower them to make a decision that says, you know what, I might need to get some help. And you can even say, hey, look, I'll go with you. I'll drive with you and wait for you. But you want to be a support system for them. But you can't make them. They're not, you can't.
In terms of a youth, go to the school. You can have, if you know what child needs support, the school, if they are aware, a school counselor or a school social worker can give therapeutic support to any child without parent consent. They can take care of your child and have therapeutic one-on-ones. The key word is therapeutic, not clinical. One-on-ones with your child and see how they're doing, can continue to check on them for free. It is a school service. So go to your school social worker, your school counselor. If your child is displaying some type of behavior and you're concerned, you don't even sometimes have to even tell your child. You can go to the school counselor and say, look, my child's not sleeping well and they're having anxiety and they don't want to go to clinical services. Can you do me a favor? Can you just check on them? As a dean of schools, I was a dean of schools for 900 students, K-8. I checked on kids consistently. And I can tell you right now, the people that were asking me to check on their kids did not look like us. Okay? But they knew the system. They knew the resources. They knew that they wanted their child to be academically strong and emotionally strong. So they walked up to the school, knocked on the door to the dean's office and said, hey, check on my kid. And guess what I said? No problem. I'll do 15-minute check-ins once a week with your child, and I'll fill you in if something is a major concern for clinical services. And here are some resources if you want to do clinical services. The school is a great resource if you know who to speak to. Now, if you go to a counselor or social worker at the school and they're not responsive, just go to the district and act real crazy, and they'll give you whatever you want. Don't act crazy. I'm sorry, that's on film. Don't act, I'm just kidding. But just go there and tell them, and it will get done, because here's the thing. You are the stakeholder. You are the constituent. You are the power. We work for you.
Yeah.
And we know it. And sometimes we get mad about the wrong stuff. You show up for basketball. You show up for the choir concert and the football game, but don't want to go to the front office and talk to the dean. We got to start having those conversations, y'all. So, yes.
And so that's one free resource, and there's, in your booklet, there's a number of resources in there. Most of them are free. I would say that any of the the clinical services in there may not be, but depending on what agency it is, there may be some free options in there that may not be necessarily clinical. Again, as Mr. Smith said, it may be therapeutic. That can give you, it could be a hybrid until you get to those clinical services.
Yes.
So those are options as well.
A school cannot provide clinical services unless it is consented from the parent. However, we can offer therapeutic services, and we're more than happy to do it. Because it's better for us, because your kid is happy and learning.
Yeah. And so those are the two questions I had here. Were there any other questions online? No?
If you raise your hand, I'll come to you.
Yes, we do have some questions from our streaming community. We have one question in particular. What about mental health laws, and why is most of the decisions to get help given to a person who is mentally challenged?
Are we talking about, well, I'm assuming we're talking about adults, and I know you will probably know more about that.
So, in the state of Arizona, if you are deemed seriously mentally ill, those individuals do have certain rights. And just under HIPAA, which is protected health information, and is protected by federal laws, CFR 42, there's certain things that individual, even though they're incapacitated or not mentally sound, they still have rights as an individual. Now, there's a process in Arizona called petitioning. In California, it's a 52, 53, I believe it is. It's called stuff in different states, 5150, thank you. Where you can petition the court to a 72-hour hold to have the person evaluated. They go before a judge, they are evaluated by a psychiatrist, and then if they are deemed to be under court order, that court order lasts for a year. Their rights are restricted, which means they cannot carry a weapon, they cannot vote. They can vote, but they have certain rights that are restricted from them. Sometimes they are issued a guardian under that petition period. But they also have the right under that period to go back in 3 months to say, hey, I want to be off this court order. If they've been seeing a psychiatrist and are medicated and are sound, they can go before the judge, and the judge can say, okay, you're released from this order. So there are certain rights. Just because someone just because someone has a mental illness does not mean they don't have rights. You know, long ago, just because we were black, they thought we had a mental illness, just because of the color of our skin. Does that mean we shouldn't have rights? No. Same thing for individuals with mental illness. Now, should they have their behavior modified if they are out of control? Yes. So there is a difference between that. I hope that answered the question.
We have a question here.
Okay, Mr. Smith, that's a question. You mentioned that you had your location has one entrance or one exit. Is that your school, or is that that's your school? Okay, so I can see why you would have an issue with that, because you would think someone would do a risk assessment and see that you would be in danger because you only have, and looking at it as far as the active shooter situation, if somebody was to go around and look at your area, they can see, well, you only got one way in, you'd be an easy target.
Yeah, so in terms of one way in and one way out, is where the students come in. We have multiple exit doors. We have multiple exit doors, and they're self-closing, and they have to be, the hydraulic has to be set every year to make sure it closes quickly. We have about 3 or 4 exit doors, and we do fire drills and all that kind of stuff. But for the students having to come in and out, it's one way in, one way out. They don't go out of any other, unless it's an emergency, to go out no other doors. Now, I'm a small campus, and I have the ability to do so. A lot of campuses, especially the ones that are very open, has a lot of fields, have the regular gates. It's an issue because anybody can come through there and get an AR-15 and do whatever. And the concern is, and this is a concern I think people need to understand, a police officer on campus with a regular 9mm issued gun is not going to stop an AR-15. So the idea that it's going to deter somebody who got the regalia, got the stuff, and got an AR-15 is going to deter because police officers there, the police officer is more likely to be killed or more likely to kill a student or someone else than it is to stop the gunman. So that's the concern we're having right now, is the mental health issue that we're having is because there is a lack of power over our ability to protect ourselves. Yeah. We are sitting in schools and we have a situation where we are sitting there powerless because if we have a police officer there, they are more likely to harass our students of color than they are to actually stop a gunman.
Thank you so much. And that concludes all of our question and answer. Yes, Pastor Miller?
Right.
One more?
We have one question here. If we
Okay.
could take it, I'd appreciate
Yes.
it.
First off, good evening. I am Leah Landrum Taylor, and I'm in the capacity this evening as Assistant Director with our Department of Economic Security. So my question is this. Could you guys speak a little bit, as we talk about mental illness and the challenges, mental health, when we go through all the challenges of even filling up your gas tank, going to the grocery store, the rents are increasing. All these things that are going on that are having these tremendous financial implications, and how those types of things can lead into the various mental health situations and cause things to spiral. And if you all could talk a little bit to that, and I also want to share this evening myself, as well as our ombudsman from Department of Economic Security, Iran Staten. Please introduce yourself. She's here as well to be able to talk about the various things and services that we have even at our Department of Economic Security. So people may think, oh, it's unemployment and EBT. It's more than that. What if you know someone even who has a child maybe that's born and they are differently abled? You want to know about services. Maybe you know someone that is in need of their child's support so that they can get the services and help that they need. Maybe perhaps it's someone with a high cost of child care and they just need to know where to go and how to get things together so they can go to work and not keep calling in and missing days, and this happened, the whole spiral that happens because of things regarding situations that arise. So if you all could talk a little bit about that, and we certainly stand as resources as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I'll start with that. So I am a single parent. I don't have family out here. So you kept saying support. So one of the critical things for me, even through, yes, I work, I've had a couple of jobs, I'm always working, right? Having that support and knowing the system, I'm fortunate because I've worked in the system, so I do know about the different resources that are available. But I think getting someone that can walk you through it, throwing a resource at someone sometimes is good. Walking them through the resource and walking them through the process is better if you have that ability to do it. Or pointing them to someone that can. It can be very daunting to say, okay, fill out this DES application. Or go sit at the DMV. Go sit here, and it's hours. And that can be frustrating. It can make you more depressed or more anxious. So finding that support system or that person or that village that can not only show you the resource, but walk with you through the resource and stand with you through the process, because the process is here and the red tape don't go quickly. It's not going to happen, I'm going to apply for food stamps, I'm going to have it tomorrow. No. It's a process. And how do I fill in those gaps? Do I get a food box? Do we come together as a few single parents and we cook for each other? Do we pull our resources together? If COVID didn't show us anything, is how we can be more communal. You talked about community. How do we pull everything together so we all can survive? Because now we're all locked in together. So how do we do that?
And I would also say that, and then I'll come to you, Pastor. I would also say that at my community agency, Hope's Crossing, we do that very thing for women. It is very stressful for them with all of the increases in every aspect of our life. Everything has gone up. I mean, everything from the socks I put on my feet, to the pajamas I put on my grandbabies, to the gas I put in my car, right? And so what Hope's Crossing does is work with women and help them do that navigation in the community of what services are available, how do I get to them, and we specialize in that warm handoff. So we're not going to tell you to call this phone number. We're going to call them. We're going to say, hey, person X, Y, and Z is coming, or they're going to call you, and this is what they need. Because sometimes it's a little bit confusing to determine exactly what they need. So sometimes they don't know. I mean, they kind of know, but they don't know how to put it in the right words. We talked all night about communication and effective communication and using the right words to get to the right solution. And that is something that we do day in and day out. And there are other agencies like that that are out there that can help. But it does, that village, having that village and making sure that support systems are in place to help you is vital. And I think as a community, there are pockets that do that well, pockets of the community that do that community well, that support system well, but there are other pockets that do not. And so we have to, as I mentioned in the beginning, we have to become that stronger village. We have to put boots on the ground, and we have to help each other and get through these difficult times, because it is very difficult. And even with services that are happening in the community, the need is so great that services are changing to try to accommodate that so fast that the community can't keep up. The agencies can't keep up in sharing the information. And so it is important to have the Hope's Crossings of the world that are involved in those communications on a regular basis and getting that new updated information and can push it out to people. So I would say that we really have to have stronger communities. We have to not be afraid to reach out. One of our big value systems at Hope's Crossing is there is no judgment. I don't care how you walk in this door, you will get loved on, you will get the support you need. If you need prayer, we will pray for you, pray with you, teach you how to pray. Whatever you need, you're going to walk out with it. And we pride ourselves on being able to do that because we know the community is hurting and the community is struggling. And so we want to be that support for individuals. Our information is also in that resource packet. Are those pages, are the resource pages in your booklet. And so you're welcome to reach out to us as well. Dr. Cortez?
Yes, I was going to say that I'm blessed to be around a nice network of a couple of people who are actually forming advocacy and clinics that can help people walk through those stages when it comes to workforce and things like that, because over the last, actually throughout COVID, I was blessed to have a couple of positions, whether I was a facilitator doing psychoeducation, being the counselor, and also being a behavior administrator of a couple of clinics. And one of the biggest things, as I'm hearing, is that if they're saying, hey, my biggest targeted goal is to get a job and get a house because I had these different issues, I had substance abuse and all this stuff. But if they suffer from anxiety of filling out an application, it's not going to get done. So who helps that person? So there are people who are actually trying to have someone who can walk along with them to do that. The other thing I was going to say is the network from Light University that I'm a part of that's looking for people who have the burden or have the heart to help with mental health and emotional support and things like that are looking to help certify ministries across the world, and they're doing very, very well because it's becoming, I don't want to say it's becoming this thing, but it's definitely become a thing that needs attention to say, okay, if we can help a ministry to have this mental behavioral coach, it doesn't mean that you are a clinician or a person like that, but you will know what to identify. You know how to do the basic stuff, so you can be that go-to person that's planted in the ministry, and then you be full of resources to refer out. Then at least your church won't go lacking, still looking, feeling thirsty, because the church is supposed to be the hub for almost everything. That's how God intended. Judgment, making decisions started with the church. Marital, big decisions started at the altar, at the church. If the pastor is called, and the reason why God is doing a lot of things with our ministry leaders, so we can go back and get this education, so we won't be so spiritually minded and we're no earthly good. Amen. Anointed and dumb at the same time. We won't be anointed and dumb at the same time. Is what I was trying to say.
And I want to add that the question really was how are the macro issues that are happening in society really affecting the mental health? It's affecting it in a huge way. And so what I tell young people who are in their 20s or the young adults that are coming out, look, don't stress yourself out. This economy was not built for you. It wasn't. Some of us made $2, $3, $4 an hour and was still able to get an apartment back in the day. So these things it's not happening. People can make $15, $16, $17 an hour and can't afford a lot of stuff. So the stress and the anxiety that people are feeling because of economic stress and anxiety is real. And so reach out to those resources. And then sometimes because our poverty rate or the idea of middle class is sometimes in the 55,000 range, I'm not sure, that's just a rough estimate. So we don't want middle class is 55 or 60,000, we don't get the services. So, but you need to ask, you need to know. And sometimes the poverty rate changes, but it's still not, especially in Arizona, we have grown, our homeless population has grown tremendously. We've had high inflation in our city, in our state. We have high issues regarding housing. It is affecting all of us, and it really affects our communities, which are considered marginalized communities, which I don't like using that term. I don't think we're a margin. I think we're bigger than that. So my thought process is acknowledge that it's really happening, acknowledge that it's real in our community, acknowledge that we always been behind the 8 ball, and then say to our young people who are coming up, we get it. You got to stay here a couple more years because we picked to throw somebody out. You stay here a couple more years, fine, because I know you making $17 an hour, and when I made $17 an hour, I had a car and an apartment. You see what I'm saying? So it's okay to understand that the economic struggles, we don't want to put that on our young people, but then also ourselves. Some of us are still making $15, $16, $18, $19 an hour trying to raise family. It is difficult. So getting that help and having that conversation, they recognizing the shame, taking that shame away, and knowing that the economy was not built for you right now, for now, is probably the best way to start. Acknowledge it first and then move on.
Can I add one more thing? He brought up a good point about the economy. I think also, too, comes financial wisdom that we have to teach. I think we do, in our community, we do 2 things. We glamorize the ghetto fabulousness, which there's nothing fabulous about being ghetto. And we need to learn how to make our money work for us. So, and this whole idea of keeping up with the Joneses. If you have 200, and I know some of y'all are gonna beat me up, but it's okay. If you have $200, $300 to spend on some Jordans, if you can stand in line for 5 hours for the newest iPhone, which is $1,500, you should buy stock in Nike and make that $1,500 work for you. Michael Jordan still makes $4 billion a year off his shoe. He don't play.
That your kids are wearing.
And so
from his black mama who negotiated it, black women.
Listen.
Let's talk about that.
So we should teach our children. I teach my daughter, I want Vans, I want this. You know what? No. Invest in Vans. Tell your friends to buy the Vans and to pay you residually. Yes. And that way you can have generational wealth. So I think there's a component of that too. And putting our time and our priorities in the right place and our money's in the right place. And you know what? You don't have to keep up with the Joneses. We don't have to be fabulous. You shouldn't be driving a Mercedes and pulling up to an apartment.
Yeah. Okay, we're gonna stop right there. We're gonna put a plug in that right there, because we could have some people jumping up and running around the church here. We don't want to do that. But I just want to wrap this conversation up by saying. This has been an amazing conversation. And you guys may not know, but these are all dear friends of mine. And we have these conversations all the time. All the time. Mr. Smith and I spend probably once every other month about 2.5 hours on the phone, and we talk about everything from soup to nuts. I mean, it's like, what is the economy doing? Who's in the White House? And what did the kids do last week? So you need a tribe of people that you can have these kind of conversations with. And if you don't have one and you need somebody to be in your tribe, just call me, 602-410-3394. And I will join your tribe and we will, oh, no, I'm ready.
No, I'm talking about this.
Yeah, you got to be ready. Because you heard what he said, I'm a disruptor. So I don't believe anything is what it is. We're going to make it better. So please find your tribe. Find your tribe, okay? Help is on the way. You have resources in the book. There's many there. There's others that can be provided. And I just want to make a call to action for each of you in this room. My heart is so big. I just love everybody. And the thing that gets me the most is to see my sisters in pain. I can't do it. So open that book, tap those resources, get the help you need. Please, please, please. For yourself, for your family, and what they say, for your children's children's children. Because this thing is generational. And Dr. Hennigan said it. It's genetic. Some things are genetic. And we can't be sitting here closed about what is happening with us that we don't think that's going to happen to my baby girl or my grandson. Am I passing something on that I'm too ashamed or too afraid to figure it out? Let's not do that. Let's not do that. Let's get this thing going. We got work to do. We got families that need to heal.
That's right.
Right? And it starts with every single one of you. So my call to action to you is don't leave this place the same way you walked in. You have so many resources up here. You have so many resources up here. Let's make it happen, right? Create that tribe. Yes.
I want to say thank you for hosting this. I want to thank everybody at the panel here. I want to dedicate the panel today to my mother, Hazel. She passed away 6 years ago today. I did this for you, Ma.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Dr. Lynette Hennigan, Dr. Cortez Sims, Mr. Kenneth Smith, I'm Laura C. Bulluck. Thank you all so very much for being here. Pastor?
I want to thank everyone on this panel again. Let's just praise the Lord for them. Amen. Laura, thank you so much for facilitating and bringing these wonderful men and women to us. One of the things that you said, and we are closing, one of the things that you said was no judging. And I think if we can treat mental illness and mental health issues from a no judgment perspective, that will help people.
Yes, yes.
It will help people tremendously. And if the church, being a pastor in the church, if we can get to that point,
Yes.
to where we love people irrespective of whatever their issues are. The church many times is hypocritical, and the church is prejudiced towards specific issues.
Yes.
Toward specific things that people are battling with. And so when you said that, it just really, it stuck with me. And so I want to move forward with that. And so if you don't mind, I think that we need to have another one of these.
Absolutely.
I think we need to have another one of these.
I would love it.
And so we will talk and collaborate so that we can make this happen.
Absolutely.
All
Anytime.
right? All right, so thank all of you who came. Those of you who are viewing us via streaming, there are resources that are available. It's online. Those of you that are here, we have some other resource packets that is out in the vestibule. Please take those and make use of them.
Yes,
God bless you.
please.
Have a great evening.
Thank you.